What's up everyone, Michael Taylor from 64 Motorsport, and this here is a valve cover gasket out of the M54 engine which comes in your E46 BMW. So if you've got an E46 with the M54 engine, chances are you've got an oil leak. So I'm going to run through the 5 areas which are most common to leak oil on your M54 engine and give you a bit of a heads up in terms of what you can do to fix it. So let's get started. As you saw there, I had the valve cover gasket, and that's one of the areas which is most prone for an oil leak on your M54 engine. It's a relatively easy job. It's going to take a few hours to do. Just take your time with it and you should be right. So because the engine's on a bit of an angle, when that valve cover gasket leaks, the oil tends to run down and drip onto your exhaust manifold, so you get that really bad burnt oil smell which will come through the car and everything like that. So that's a pretty easy one to identify, and I always believe that you should start from the top and work your way down in terms of fixing those sort of problems. The next area which is really prone to leak oil on your M54 engine is the oil filter housing, and it has a gasket where the housing mounts to the engine block, and it's located, I'll show you, and that's the oil filter housing there. Now that job's a little bit more complicated. Straightforward enough to do, but you've got to remove a fair bit of stuff to get to the housing itself to be able to remove it. And that includes your airbox, alternator, radiator, overflow tank, and top radiator hose in order to get access to it. You need to allow yourself at least half a day to do that job, but it's a really worthwhile one doing. Now while you're there, another common oil leak will be on the Vanos feed line, which is... You have to excuse me because I've got this disconnected at the moment. It's that line there. So with age, that hose tends to deteriorate and you may get an oil leak there. While you're replacing your oil filter housing gasket, that's a good one to replace. The other area where you're probably going to get an oil leak is in your crankcase ventilation system, and there's a hose which runs from the crankcase ventilation valve down to the side of the dipstick tube, and that hose becomes brittle, and as oil's feeding down you can get a leak there. While you're at the dipstick, there's also an O-ring where it seals into the sump, and that's another common oil leak area. If you're replacing the crankcase ventilation drain line, then you might as well replace the O-ring on the dipstick as well, and you'll kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Number 5, I believe, is the oil pan, and that is a very involved job, but it's certainly not something which is beyond most home mechanics. I've done it at home in my own garage. It does involve having to drop the whole K-frame in order to be able to get access to all the bolts for the oil pan, and it is a little bit fiddly, so you want to allow yourself probably a good weekend to do that. By the time you get the oil pan out, get everything cleaned up, and then get it back on, and then assemble all the K-frame and suspension components. Really involved job, but it's not something that is beyond somebody who's got a reasonably good DIY mechanical knowledge. And there, my 5 areas where you need to look at in terms of oil leaks on your M54 engine out of the E46 BMW. So they're pretty common maintenance because they're made out of nitrile rubber. They do tend to break down, those gaskets, and generally around about 100,000 kilometers is about the point where you're going to start to see signs of a leak. So if you've just bought an E46 BMW with the 6-cylinder M54 engine in it, stick some money aside to get those maintenance areas taken care of, because if you sort them out now, it's going to save you a bit of grief down the track and a heap of cleaning up in terms of once it starts leaking oil. So if you can fix it before it starts leaking oil, it's going to save you a fair bit of work. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have, don't forget to hit that like button. And if you'd like to see more videos about E46 BMW ownership in terms of maintenance, performance upgrades, and to follow my E46 build, then subscribe and ring the bell so you get notified each time new content comes out. But I've enjoyed your company. Thank you very much for watching. And until we meet again, look after yourselves, stay safe, and TTFN.